It is 2024 and you are hunting for an apartment in the Silicon Valley. Said no one, because no one likes living here. And I'm gonna tell you exactly why, because I went to 9 apartment complexes in the Silicon Valley, mostly Sunnyvale, and you're gonna see firsthand exactly how ugly the housing market is here in the Silicon Valley. And here's the thing, I love the Silicon Valley for a few things. One, namely the number of Asian grocery stores. You've got 99 Ranch, you've got H Mart and Najia. There is every sort of Asian market you could ever want within this area, but I just cannot justify how expensive it is. And if you don't know me, I am Elise. I am 31, living here in the Silicon Valley as a dietitian, an intuitive eating dietitian with my dog. And I was recently on the hunt for a new place to live. And because I have a dog, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll go find my own studio or 1 bedroom. And when I looked at apartments.com, I was shocked and dismayed. The Silicon Valley is right below SF, and it includes Sunnyvale, Cupertino, Menlo Park, Mountain View, Redwood City, and even San Jose. The typical average 1 bedroom apartment in Redwood City is $2,664. And then we move on to Mountain View, which is in the middle of the Silicon Valley, and the average 1 bedroom there is $3,100. And that's because it's kind of at the center of where all the tech companies are, where Apple is, where Google is, everything is in that region. And then the southernmost part of the Silicon Valley area is San Jose, and average 1 bedroom prices are $2,400. So you're looking anywhere between $2,400 to $3,100 for a 1 bedroom. And that is just completely outside of my budget. As someone who works in healthcare as an intuitive eating dietitian, dietitians are the least paid healthcare provider in the entire healthcare system. I don't know why any of us chose this profession, but that's for another day. In any case, a 1 bedroom and even a studio, it's outside of my budget. And so at the age of 31, I still have to go out and find myself a roommate. So my criteria was to basically find a 2-bed, 2-bath where I would have to find a roommate, but at least we would have our own private bathroom each. Another thing that is at the very top of my list is it has to be sunny. It needs to be south-facing windows, or at the very least east or west facing windows, because I need sunshine to feel happy and at my best. Especially if I have to be here in the South Bay, at least give me some sunny windows to look out of. Anything north is just miserable. The third most important thing was that it had to be walkable. I love a big city, seeing the hustle and bustle of people when I'm walking home from work. If you were to stick me in the middle of nowhere in suburbia, I would just wilt. And then of course, the other things are a top floor would be ideal, dog friendly. So where I landed on was Sunnyvale. And for a typical 1 bedroom, it's about $2,600. My budget for my part of the apartment was anywhere between $1,500 up to $1,800. The reason why that was my budget, I have to give you a little background on my renting history. I've always rented apartments. I've always had roommates at that. And you know, when I was young, I didn't know any better. And a prime example is in undergrad at Cal, I lived in a bunk bed in the living room of a 1 bedroom apartment. So in that whole 1 bedroom apartment, there were 3 girls. And my rent back then was $350. That was what my first rental experience was like. And I really thought nothing of it. I just thought that that was how people lived. I didn't mind. I even invited people over. It was fine. Exhibit B, I then went to grad school at UCLA, and then I shared a bedroom with a girl. So we were breathing the same air in that same bedroom for 2 years. And I think I paid about $1,000, I can't remember, in Westwood, which is walking distance from UCLA, very expensive neighborhood. So I'm used to paying very cheap rent. And so to me, anything close to $1,500 or $2,000 feels like a lot. It feels like too much. Why would I lock myself in to a place that expensive and then I can't even travel and get away? Anyway, so that's why my budget is $1,500 to $1,800. And so everything I'm gonna share with you are 2-bed, 2-baths that are dog friendly in the Sunnyvale area, so keep that in mind. The first place I toured, let's just call it Wonder Bread, because that's exactly how it felt to me. It was in the northern part of Sunnyvale, and right when you drive to it, there's nothing outside of the apartment complex. What I mean by nothing is there's no one, and all you see are office buildings with parking lots. When I got to go up to the apartment, it was fine. Appliances were new, everything was fine. It was comfortable, it was cozy. The view was of the driveway and the few bushes. The overall landscaping was nice and quiet, lots of grass, lots of trees, even a little playground in the middle. A very plain Jane, very Wonder Bread-like, nothing that stood out. The second place I toured, let's call this Chardonnay. And I say that because it was a little bit more exciting. There was a fizz, there was a bubbliness to it because it was located in downtown Sunnyvale, which means that it's walking distance to the farmer's market, to a whole strip of bars and restaurants and cafes, and there was a Whole Foods and Target literally a block away. It's very lively for the Silicon Valley, and if you know, you know. The issue with Chardonnay is it's expensive. It's more expensive than my budget would allow. That was if you acted fast. A week later, we went to see that place again, and that same place was going for $4,300. It was effervescent, but the bubbliness died down very quickly because of how quickly the price went up. If you act too slow, places like this go up in price, so keep that in mind. I came out of it feeling, you know, nice. It felt clean, it felt modern, but that would mean goodbye to my travel fund and savings. Next, we'll call this one Orange Juice. This one was also located in downtown Sunnyvale, but the literal color of the building was orange. Old-fashioned, a little bit traditional, a little bit outdated, I would say. The bedrooms were carpet, there was a little bit of hardwood, but the appliances were old. Think the white fridges. No one really drinks orange juice anymore, but if it's there, it's still yummy. That's how this one felt. I actually lived in this one for 2 years. A few years ago when I first moved here, and I got the COVID deal. For $3,000 a month, this place is fine. Totally fine, worth it. Walking distance to downtown Sunnyvale, but at the new price of $3,800, this orange juice no longer tastes as good. The next one I'll call Steak because it is an expensive girl. And I say that because the starting price was, I think, $4,300. It's very modern. If I'm gonna pay that much, then why would I live there? I would rather pay that much and live in San Francisco with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. That's the only time that I would wanna pay that much, not in suburbia. Same thing with steak. Like, why go to a restaurant and pay like $40 to $60 for a cut of steak when you can just buy grass-fed steak at home and cook it for like $15. Next is another property, not much to do around that neighborhood. It's giving a Holiday Inn pancakes. It's just not that cool. Like, nothing about it looked nice. It wasn't modern, it wasn't new. Next, we have an Aperol Spritz. This place was for the social people of the Silicon Valley. There were 4 tennis courts, there were 3 pools. The whole vibe was very social. You can rent out spaces to have parties. You can play tennis all day long with the 4 huge tennis courts and swim afterwards. Even though there's not much to do outside of that apartment complex, if you're in it, you can read a book on the grass. It feels nice enough to do so. You can people watch the people playing tennis while you're reading. The issue with this place is all of the 2-bed, 2-baths, the bedrooms were sharing a wall. So if you are a roommate that is taking a lot of video calls or filming videos like this, then it might get awkward if your roommate is in the other room and could probably hear you through the wall. Overall, great vibes, very much like Aperol Spritz, very lively, very bubbly, and very, very sweet. Then we have moldy cheese. Oh my God, moldy cheese. Where do I even begin? It's like making me stressed just like thinking about it. The reason why I'm calling it moldy cheese is because it literally feels like it came out from the 70s and no one has thought to like renovate it or do anything about it. It's just been molding to the point where it's like inedible. And the weirdest thing about this one was when you go into the lobby, it has floor to ceiling glass windows. Like, it's a very modern lobby. But then you go into the units and you're looking at all carpets, you're looking at yellow, orange looking walls, and you're looking at a fireplace that hasn't been updated in like 40 years. Not one unit we toured had any light in it. It was as dark can be. I just cannot begin to describe how depressing I felt standing inside of it. This was like bad moldy cheese where you would get sick staying in it. It makes sense because they were offering 6 weeks off on the rent, which made it really cheap, but you couldn't pay me to live in that one. Next, we have Chinese steamed bun, right next to a 99 ranch with 3 boba stores and 12 Chinese restaurants. And next door, across the street, is the Apple office. And for the price, the amenities are new, the appliances are new, everything is very modern. But my only gripe with this location is how it's laid out, like the neighboring streets. On one side of this apartment complex is a highway. On the other side of this street is the huge road leading to the highway. And then finally at the very back of this complex is a cul-de-sac with a dead end. So if you really think about it, you're kind of sealed in with highways, very large streets, and also nothing to walk to. You're literally trapped as the filling inside of the bun. Okay, and then finally, the last place I toured. I don't have a food analogy for this one, but right across the street from this apartment complex is the DMV. I don't want to be reminded of the DMV every time I'm driving home, and it's right next to the highway. One was south facing, which is my favorite, of course, but when I looked at it from the outside, there were huge trees literally blocking that exact unit, which meant that that unit gets no light. You walk in, it's fine, appliances are fine, it's just a maze. It's one of those places where when you get up the elevator, you have to walk for like 5 minutes to get to your apartment. So there's not really any landscaping, there's not trees, there's not grass, so you feel pretty locked in. Kind of like how you feel at the DMV. My observations of touring these 9 apartment complexes is no one likes living here. I can't tell you one person who raves about living in the Silicon Valley because of this. This is exactly why. There is nothing interesting here besides grocery stores and the convenience of grocery stores. You know, I love grocery hopping from Costco to 99 to Sprouts and Whole Foods, you name it, love it. I'm a dietitian, but I don't love it that much because all the apartments look like this. There's no view, everything's surrounded by a highway. When you're looking out the window, you're looking at your neighbor's apartment. It's just missing inspiration. None of the houses here, none of the apartments here you live in, you're like, I'm so inspired by this place. Be really diligent about going to each unit. Don't just book something because you think it's a nice apartment complex. Literally tour every unit. Open up your Compass app and see what direction the windows are facing. Ideally, south is gonna give you the most light all throughout the day. East and west will give you morning versus afternoon sun. I can't remember which is which. And if you are facing north, you might as well just have seasonal affective disorder all year long because you're probably not gonna get any sun. And look at the unit from the outside. If that unit is still occupied and they haven't moved out yet, make it a point to go to the unit and walk to the outside of that unit to see what it looks like from the outside. Are there trees blocking it? What is it facing? Is it looking out to the parking lot? Is it looking out to the mountains? Like, what is it looking at? Because you're gonna be looking at that view for the next 12 to 15 months at the very least. Out of the 9 places I toured, only 3 of them were walkable and 6 of them were by a highway or a very big intersection. So keep that in mind. If you're someone that's really affected by walkability, really make sure to look closely at that. Even if you can't look at the place, go on Google Maps, open up the street view and literally like walk on street view on Google Maps to see what the streets look like. Out of all 9, none of them really met all of my criteria. All of them had a few flaws, and call me picky. Now that I'm older in my 30s, I'm not gonna be that girl in undergrad who lived in a bunk bed in the living room with another girl. I now want to be comfortable. I now want to feel cozy and inspired in my living situation. I can't just rough it anymore because why am I working this hard if all I want to do is escape my house and go travel? That's not the way to live. With that being said, Aperol Spritz was the closest to what I wanted. So for this round, I have basically called it quits. I'm not gonna move out at any point right now, but if something opens up in SF, that might be what I end up doing. So hopefully that you found this helpful. This was a pretty dejecting experience. It took a lot of running around. It took me 3 to 4 full days of touring these 9 places. Some of them required appointments, but I just think that apartment living in these cookie cutter places might not be for me, especially here. And so let me know what you've been able to find, if you've had any luck, how you feel finding places with roommates when you're in your 30s, because that's where we're at. Maybe the move is to move to a cheaper place. Maybe that's the answer, because maybe my time is up in this Silicon Valley area.